I think Sean is always honest, and I don't think he's blowing smoke at the media, and I don't think he's blowing smoke at his team. I think he feels like he's got a really good group, a special group.
Let's go out and talk to our guy, Brian Baldinger. Baldy, we missed you, and we have so much to catch up on, and let's just dive right in. The Broncos made a bit of trade yesterday, sending Devon Vele to the Saints in a return that I think just shocked Broncos country. Broncos are able to get a 4th and a 7th round pick back for Devon. Was this the right move from the Broncos, despite Vele being a good player, with the 4th offered? Was this a move that they had to make?
Well, I think they're at the stage right now where they feel real good about the roster. And now they're looking ahead and going, look, we've got good depth. We've got really good young players. We saw them all on display, last weekend against Arizona. And now let's start building our treasure chest of picks, getting ready for, whatever might happen in the draft next year or the year after. Let's start, because they've been shorthanded for 2 years, but they've really drafted well and they spent their money wisely. And now, like good teams, let's stockpile some picks if we get a chance. And who knows when they might, what we might use those for, what player might become available that we might be interested in.
Yeah, it's interesting because the Broncos haven't been in a position to get comp picks, because their players haven't been either good enough or they've just re-signed them because they've had the money because there aren't as many to re-sign. And they're still kind of in that phase, but pretty soon they're going to have to start making some tough decisions about guys who are going to walk in free agency. And Nik Bonitto probably won't be one of those guys, but the deal isn't done yet. I'm curious what you think of paying Nik Bonitto at this point in his career, and what kind of value you think he has.
Well, he's got tremendous value. I mean, he's proven that he's more than just a pass rusher, although he's very good at that. He's very good in this particular scheme. He's homegrown. They drafted him, and they've developed him. I mean, that's kind of what you want to do. You want to draft, develop, and then retain. And that's what the good teams do. And I would think that the Broncos will do everything they can in order to secure that. They lost a pass rusher this offseason, and so I think they're in good shape to replace him. But you can't just let these guys walk out the door and just think you're going to find them in the draft and be able to, because you can't always draft and develop these guys. Sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. But I would think that he's ready to stack another good year on top of what he's done the last 2 years, and that's the guy that you'd want to keep.
Baldy, I was talking to a Broncos fan yesterday, and we were talking about the offensive line, and they were saying, like, I don't believe all these PFF rankings about the offensive line. I don't think our offensive line is good enough, et cetera, et cetera. So my question for you is, one, why does every NFL fan hate their offensive line? And two, how good do you think that this offensive line actually is in terms of ranking in the NFL?
Well, I think they're very good. I mean, I don't know if they're a top 5 offensive line, but they were a healthy offensive line last year. That's a big part of it. They had last year, Wattenberg was the first-year starter, and that was a battle last year at this time to see who was going to get that position. He played well. He's a big guy in the middle. And then last week against Arizona, you saw all backups play. We know Palchevis can play. Throckmorton, guys that, you might have to depend on. Sometimes it's not just your 5, it's the depth that you have. I was just doing something this morning on the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. They moved their Pro Bowl left guard over to center because their center had, back spasms and couldn't get out of bed. And then that player got hurt and the center had to – you don't know. Lane Johnson got pulled out of a game last year and his backup went in there and played well. So I think they've got depth. I think they got guys that can answer the bell. But, I don't know. I guess if you're not leading the league in rushing or your quarterback is getting sacked a lot, people just think your offensive line stinks. And we know that that's not really the case. Like, for example, RJ Harvey scores on the 4th play of the game last week, 8-yard run up the middle. So if you watch the play, and I'm sure you guys have seen it, but if you really study it, almost every back I know would have cut to the right because that's where all the space was. That's where the daylight was. But there was a linebacker sitting in the hole. And he probably would have gained 4 yards, and it could have gone to a goal, whatever it was to first and goal to second and goal to 4, whatever. He decided to stay with the center and the guard, and then he split it and he hit it. And so, if you gain 4 yards there and maybe you don't score, people go, the offensive line. Like that running back made that group look great. Like I don't know how many backs would have made that read because there was nothing there when he first took the handoff. But he was very patient and it opened up and it was the right move. Sometimes better players, quarterbacks, running backs, they can make your offensive line look good. I know I played for a lot of good running backs, Tony Dorsett and Eric Dickerson. They made me look good on most Sundays.
Well, and Baldy, that's one of the reasons that the new running backs, J.K. Dobbins and RJ Harvey, why Sean Payton feels comfortable going out and telling the public, I believe this team has a chance to win the Super Bowl this year. That was one of the biggest storylines in training camp, was Sean saying that. Do you think he's crazy for saying that? Or do you think this Broncos team has the pieces to compete for a Super Bowl starting this year?
I think Sean is always honest, and I don't think he's blowing smoke at the media, and I don't think he's blowing smoke at his team. I think he feels like he's got a really good group, a special group. So much young talent that they drafted last year and this year, and we saw it all last week. So I think, when you have guys that are young and coachable and are playing at a good level, and you can coach them every day because they're not beat up, they're not old, they don't need days off. You can just go coach them. I mean, I don't know if there's anybody, maybe Zach Allen, I don't know, but maybe there's one or two guys on the team where you sort of back off a little bit. But this is a young team where you can really work them. And I think we're seeing that they've got depth at a lot of positions. You see a Jaleel McLaughlin get his first handoff and he goes, 40 yards, down the right sideline. You see Evan Ingram on the second play of the game go 40 yards. Like I feel like he's got the explosives now. He's got the depth. And I think he feels like he can coach these guys.
That's interesting. I want to jump back to the offensive line because one of the things, I guess Sean hasn't said it. Sean said there are going to be changes to the run game. But other guys have said there's been a heavy emphasis on wide zone running. That, Adam Troutman spent the entire offseason trying to figure out his role and how to go about that, how to trust his landmarks. It really seems like we're going to see a lot of the wide zone this year, which is a throwback to what the Broncos did back in the day. I'm curious what you think of maybe not a huge shift, but at least a slight shift toward that style.
Well, I mean, honestly, the godfather of that is Alex Gibbs, who was with Mike Shanahan, and we saw it, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And Alex was amazing coach, and there's a lot of guys that splintered off him. But honestly, the advantage of a wide zone are twofold. One, it highlights really athletic offensive linemen because you got to get on your horse and run. And then two, it stretches the defense in ways that you can't really get if you're just running a power game and you're running power O and you're running inside zone and you're just trying to move big people. Like there's a place for all that. But when you can stretch them and not really have to move them very far off the ball, and then you create lanes for backs that are one cut, like RJ looks like one of these guys. Jaleel is definitely one of these guys, where you can one cut and go get yourself 6 yards or maybe more. Like there is an advantage to that. And then there is the third thing that comes with it was all the play action that comes off, especially with a quarterback that can move. And so now you got quarterback keepers, you got rollouts, you got bootlegs, you got a whole nother offensive scheme that teams have to defend. And it gets really difficult.
Looking now at this wide receiver group without Devon Vele, who do you think benefited the most from that trade in terms of the upgrade in playing time that they're going to get?
Well, I mean, Pat Bryant was pretty good. It seemed like he was open all day last week. I know he's just a rookie, but he seems like he's got a feel. When Stidham was in trouble, to find the opening in the middle of the field a couple of times. And certainly Troy Franklin certainly took advantage of the opportunity. And then you just watch those guys in the blocking. Watch Troy blocking at the point of attack on McLaughlin's cutback. I mean, I thought they got some good blocking, and I thought they made a lot of big plays in the past. I mean, those two guys jump out at me, guys that have taken advantage of it.
Baldy, final one for you, and I'm proud of us. We made it through this entire thing before mentioning Bo Nix's name because the Broncos are deeper than just their quarterback this year. But one of the things Sean Payton also said in those comments was he believes Bo Nix will be a top 4 or 5 quarterback in the NFL in the next 2 years. First, what do you think of those comments? And second, who does he overtake and how does he do that if he is to do that?
Well, I mean, in order to be in that conversation, you basically have to get your team to the playoffs. I mean, there's no shortcomings. I mean, you can't put Justin Herbert in there, even though we recognize the talent, because he doesn't do that every year. And then when he got there last year, he was terrible. You know, he wasn't good the offense. But, you know,
we love hearing it.
That company that he's talking about is, you know, we know the names. Like, you know, that's Lamar, that's Josh, that's Patrick. You know, those guys just, you know, that's Joe Burrow. You know, that's the top 4. And so if you want to be in that, Jalen Hurts, the Super Bowl MVP, has been in 2 Super Bowls. I mean, that's basically your best 5 in this league. You can debate it all you want. But if you want to be in that company, you have to probably start winning the division, you know, to be honest with you. And nobody's done that but Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes. He's never not won the division. So that's what you got to probably do to be in that company because the quarterbacks are always going to be measured ultimately. I mean, Joe Burrow just has special talent. So we know the defense isn't very good, but still, he just looks different than everybody else. His ability just to go through progressions and the accuracy. But, you know, if you want to be in that conversation, we're always going to measure quarterbacks. They did it with John Elway by what you do in the postseason. So you got to get to the postseason, whether it's winning your division or qualifying for it, and then winning games in the postseason. You know, Jalen Hurts right now is 6-3 in the postseason. All right, he's been to 2 Super Bowls and he's been an MVP. So, you know, that's ultimately how you get measured. And so that's not to say Stafford doesn't belong or, you know, anybody else. But that's the company that I think Sean Payton's talking about, which is, you know, it's good. You know, it's the guys that elevate everybody else around them. They're the true franchise quarterbacks when you end up doing that.
And Baldy, we are in great hands when you're in our company. We really appreciate you being on. We look forward to catching up with you every single week from here on out. It's been awesome to catch up.
Thanks, Zach. You got it. See you guys.
See you, Baldy.
See you, Baldy.
Man, absolutely love his insight there.